Time now to check to see what's making headlines in our Across Africa report. Boko Haram insurgents attacked a military airbase located in northeast Nigeria on Monday. According to the Nigerian military, 24 militants died in the attack and 2 service members were wounded. The government issued a curfew in the aftermath. And Somali's prime minister lost a parliamentary vote of confidence on Monday. This vote followed his attempt to remove some of the president's allies from the cabinet last month. The president now has 30 days to appoint a new prime minister. And in Egypt, Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood rejected the country's new draft constitution that a government assembly approved on Monday. The group, which supports ousted President Mohamed Morsi, called the revised constitution illegitimate. The draft constitution must be approved by a referendum. And a UN official announced on Monday that its peacekeeping forces would utilize a new fleet of drones to patrol Congo's eastern region. With the defeat of the M23 rebel group, the UN said it will now turn its attention to other rebel militias operating in eastern Congo. And despite widespread opposition, the long-awaited electronic toll system in South Africa's Gauteng province went live at midnight on Monday. An estimated 750,000 motorists had registered and bought e-tags amidst widespread protests. And Across Africa continues now with our Arise News contributor, Frankie Edozien. Hey, Frankie.
Hi, Debbie.
Good to see you.
How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, and it sounds like there's something new and exciting here in Africa, a new currency that is going to be developed.
Possibly in 10 years. But the heads of the 5 East African nations, after talking about this for the last 10 years, have signed an agreement that is going to allow for there to be a single currency within that region. They already have common borders and common marketplace, so people can travel between one to the other. But after looking at the success of the euro and what it has done for Europe, the East African bloc of nations, the 5 of them, feel like it's time for them to have something similar. There is a lot of oil that has been discovered in Uganda and also in Kenya, and Tanzania has natural gas. So there is a lot of investment going in there, and one of the barriers to that is the different currency. If they can have a single currency in 10 years, that would allow investors to feel more confident in going in. So that agreement was just signed on Saturday.
Okay, understood that this is 10 years down the road, but the currencies that they have now, how much variation is there between the values? Because I imagine that's going to be a sticking point.
That is one of the biggest sticking points. There are obviously some countries that are doing better than others, and they're trying to see if they can start small and have one central bank for each. So Kenya and Uganda have already committed to developing a central bank that will have all of the others. Tanzania is feeling that they are committed to this, but they feel like they've been left out a lot of the decision making. So there's still a lot of wrangling to be happening right now, but if it does happen, it would be quite successful. We've had instance of a single currency in Africa before, and that was with the French franc, which was the African CFA. That worked for some time, but this would be the first time it is really like an African currency that was brought about by the nations itself. In West Africa, it's a little difficult, even though they have a similar economic bloc, which is ECOWAS, but they have countries that speak different languages. So it's really, really different. In East Africa, bulk of them are all using English.
So the chances of this going continental as opposed to regional are pretty slim then?
Pretty slim, but if East Africa can have a single currency in 10 years, then they can have a lot of investment coming into the region because there are 135 million of them in all those countries put together. And so it's a vast resource.
Okay, all right. Let's change to another topic. We'll turn to South Africa and President Jacob Zuma, who is provocative and controversial sometimes, has asked for reimbursement. I can't say it without laughing. Go ahead.
So he has, it's been a bit of a problem. You know, several weeks ago we talked about how there was the Mo Ibrahim Foundation could not give its award to any past African leader, and it's because of things like this. He has had security upgrades to the tune of $21 million done to his home by state money, but the anti-graft prosecutor over there has said that some of that money should have been borne by the family itself, and some of that includes things like a lounge, a swimming pool, which was described in the reports as a fire pool, as a reservoir in case there was a fire, and just modernizing his compound. He does have a large compound with a huge family, but a lot of that money, the prosecutor felt, should not have been borne by the state. They should have been borne by him himself, and that he violated South Africa's rules by wasting public funds. She also mentioned that there are some things that are actually needed, which are a helicopter pad and housing for police, but those should not have been built on his property. They should have built in the neighboring town so that everybody gets a benefit of that. So she's asking that he refund at least $2 million. So he hasn't been very happy about this, and his government had tried to get local reporters not to publish photos of the property, but they all defied that, and the pictures were splashed all over the news in South Africa. So it's not a very good couple of days for Jacob
Yeah,
Zuma.
it didn't go over very well, but hey,
he has elections coming
plan.
up in 6 months, so this does not bode well.
Yeah, hopefully he can spin it somehow, or we'll see what his opponent has to say about that. Let's move on. We talked last week when you were here. You talked about the French increasing their military presence in Africa.
It's really
and here we go again.
Yes, Central African Republic. This is almost like a forgotten country because not much seems to be happening there. But this year they have really had a lot of problems with Muslim and Christian fighting. And right now, there are at least 400,000 people have been displaced from their homes. CAR, as is known, the foreign minister says that things are bad, but it's not so bad. The French people say it's pre-genocidal, that things are on the verge of breaking up over there. Why is this a concern? It is a concern to not just France, but to a lot of Western nations, because if we have another failed state in Africa, that means there's a place where we could have more jihadists working out of, as we saw that happened with Somalia in the past. And there's also the threat of more transportation of drugs, which is happening in West Africa. And having a failed state would be another place where there could be a drug cargo. But France, as usual, is saying we're going to go in there with our military and we're going to try and stabilize this, that this is a humanitarian threat. Fortunately for them, there is a meeting with African leaders in Paris, Francophone leaders in Paris, at the end of this week, actually. And so they're hoping that they can have a dialogue with those leaders on the 4th through the 6th of December, rather than just going in. But at the moment, it seems as if France is ready to put boots on the ground.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I know you'll follow that and give us an update. Before we let you go, let's talk about, this is exciting for Kenya, a new railway being built by the Chinese.
Yes, remember in August we were talking about how Uhuru Kenyatta his first state visit was to China, and he came back with a promise of, I think it was at the time, $32 billion in aid. He didn't come to the United States first, he went to China first. So the first kickoff of that is $5 billion for a rail line, a modern rail line, but it not just cuts across Kenya, but it's also going to go as far as Rwanda, Ethiopia, possibly South Sudan. So this is one of those rail lines that will actually help not just the country, but increase stability in that regional bloc they are trying to make. So if they do have that single currency, infrastructure needs to be part of it. And Kenya is taking the lead by saying, we're going to build this railroad that will serve all of those countries in our bloc.
It sounds like nothing but good news, but there is some controversy here in our last 20 seconds.
Yes, of course. There's always controversy when it comes to Chinese money, but also, again, Tanzania feels like they are not being kept in the loop. So.
Okay, and when will they start on that, do you know?
They actually did the launch on Saturday, so that means supposedly construction is beginning. Okay. It won't be done until, I think, 2015 is the target.
All right, Frankie Edozien, thank you so much.
Thank you, Debbie.
See you next week.
All righty.
And you are watching Arise America.